Hey everyone, welcome to the Sustain the Range podcast. I'm Lauren, your host, and this podcast is a personal exploration of my experiences in everything ranching. From beef operations to training horses to sustainable farming and regenerative practices, we'll cover it all. Each episode features enlightening conversations with guests who bring their unique perspectives and expertise. Whether they're seasoned ranchers or first-generation farmers, we all share a common bond and deep appreciation for the land and the livestock we raise. Tune in each week for engaging discussions, inspiring stories, and practical insights from the ranching community, and let's embark on this incredible journey together. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sustain the Range podcast. In today's episode, we're diving deep into a conversation about faith, resilience, and chasing dreams with none other than the incredible Sam Moulding, better known as Stay Gritty on Instagram. Sam Moulding is a fifth-generation Montana Cowgirl, a businesswoman, barrel horse trainer, rodeo coach, and most importantly, a follower of Jesus. Her mindset, grit, and outlook on life truly set her apart. Sam's personal brand, Stay Gritty, inspires and encourages people all over the world to persevere through whatever challenges they face in life. So whether you're seeking motivation to overcome obstacles, intrigued by the world of barrel racing, or insights into the Western industry, join us as we talk about maintaining grit and resilience in pursuit of your dreams. Let's dive in. Thank you, Sam, so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to have you here and to have you on my podcast. I know my listeners are going to really love this conversation. So I just wanted to welcome you and thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, so I thought that we could really kind of talk about, your experience in the Western industry. And I have been following you on Instagram for quite some time. And I just really love your page and everything that you share about your faith and horses and barrel racing and, self-development. So I really am excited to talk about all of those things. So could you just give us a little introduction about who you are, where you're from, kind of your background?
Yes, I'm Sam Moulding. I'm a fifth-generation Montanan. I grew up here, still call the 406 home. I am a horse trainer, a barrel racer, a realtor, and very much an avid follower of Jesus. And I love to talk about all of those things. So I think it's going to be an awesome conversation where we can just be real. And my social media is crazy. I never could have imagined the platform that I would have. And some days it just doesn't even seem real. But God is so good and has just continued to bless my entire journey. And I'm very grateful for all the opportunities.
Yeah, that's amazing. When I started following on Instagram and seeing, the things that you've posted on there and your faith journey has just been really inspiring. And I know that a lot of people do too. And you have a Bible study, which I was a member of for a few weeks there. And you still currently have it too. And I know you just got off the Bible study today. So how has that been going for you?
Yeah, it's going absolutely amazing. Again, I'm just humbled by how the Holy Spirit has shown up in those Bible studies and the amazing women that have shown up. And sometimes it is amazing to me how social media can bring together, God brings together people with social media and to come from all over the world and talk and worship God and have the opportunity to grow from each other and learn from each other and serve God has just been absolutely beautiful. And the Bible study has been absolutely just eye-opening and powerful, and I'm very grateful for everyone that has made that possible.
Yeah. And at the end, I'll have you kind of share how people can join that call on Mondays too. When you started your Instagram page, did you have a goal of growing it the way that you did, or were you just like, hey, I'm going to start sharing some of my horses online, and then really had no idea where it was going to go?
Yeah. So I definitely had no goal per se of growing it to what it is or it like becoming a place of inspiration for anyone really. I mean, my hope was that I was going through some hard times and that if I could make it easier for even just one person, that would be good enough. Like if one person could hear my story and my testimony and know Jesus or see Jesus or have their load be a little bit less then that would be amazing. And it has gone farther and reached more people than I ever could have imagined.
Yeah, I feel like we have such a love-hate with social media that, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, just the not nice people, sometimes the little keyboard warriors, but it's also such a great tool for like connection. And I mean, when they probably started this, social media, people probably had no idea what it would be now and how it grew. And, the connection and the access to information that we have is insane, good and bad.
Yeah, I love what you said, that it's a tool, because I very much maintain that mentality of it is a tool and either you use it or it uses you. You need to be very, very intentional about it. It can be a blessing or a curse, like so many things in life.
Yeah, definitely. I'd really love to just ask about, your background in horses, how you got started. Did you grow up riding horses? What was your first experience getting on a horse? And then we can kind of move into barrel racing and kind of some rodeo competition. So how'd you get started?
Yeah, I was definitely born into it. My mom is an horse junkie. She's horse crazy. I was born horse crazy. When I was a baby, she always jokes that I was her only kid that would just be mad and crying when I was a tiny baby if I wasn't on a horse. So she would just put me on a broodmare and give her a pile of hay, and I would just stay there till I fell asleep. And when I was falling asleep, she'd get me, and then I'd wake up and cry and want back on a horse. So I was definitely born with it in my soul, and have been so blessed to be able to pursue it all of my life. There's never been a time in my life where I didn't have horses, and that's a huge blessing that I don't take for granted. I started barrel racing when I was 3, probably. I rode in my first Judy Millimackie clinic when I was 4, and I've always loved barrel race. I've always loved fast horses. I truly, honestly think that God just puts it in some people. We were kind of around the junior rodeos, and my mom was taking my older brothers and me to the junior rodeos. And I was like, I want to be a world champion barrel racer when I grow up. And I honestly I had a dream about it when I was about 3 and a half, 4. And then I woke up and I told my mom, I'm going to be a world champion barrel racer. And then she got me in with Judy Millimackie, and I rode with her for years and years. And she definitely gave me my foundation and taught me so much about barrel racing.
So I don't know. I mean, I know a little bit about barrel racing. I think I've taken like 2 lessons for barrel racing, and it was so much fun. And the horses were amazing that I rode. What was it like for you growing up in rodeo? Did you compete a lot? A lot of lessons. Kind of what was it like for you? Because you started really early at a really young age.
Yes, I did start at a young age. I really never played any other sports. I never really had any other focus. I've been very dedicated to it really since I decided to start. Again, my mom is to thank for all my success and the opportunities. She continued to put me with the best trainers and the best opportunities and the best horses that she could afford to give me. And, that wasn't always the most expensive horses or necessarily the best horses, but she did absolutely the best that she could. And I was fortunate to, she's a very good horsewoman and has continued to learn along with me and, continue to pursue higher levels of horsemanship and never stop growing. I mean, the thing is you can't stop learning. As soon as you stop learning, you're going to hit a plateau. And so I've just continued to pursue knowledge and horsemanship. And that's really the biggest secret, is to stay humble and keep learning.
Yeah.
I did rodeo, from the beginning. I rodeoed all through high school. and junior high, jackpots, lots of barrel races. I have always been very focused on barrel racing. I roped a little bit. I didn't focus on it though. My mom just honestly didn't have the means, and I didn't have the time to dedicate to multiple events. I wanted to be the best. I still want to be the best. And that meant be obsessed or be average. And I just became obsessed very young.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. And you were just down in Arizona for the winter, doing a lot of rodeo there. So how did that go?
Yeah, it went awesome. This part of life is kind of about my little sister. She's 9, and my lesson kids, they are, young, 12, 13, 14 years old. And so it was an amazing trip. The girls won their age divisions and buckles, and we had a lot of success. There was some hardships. It's not, again, how you define success is very important to your mind and how this journey is going to go. If you're only doing this sport to win and to be in first place, it's going to be a really long road, because everybody has bad days. Everybody's horse has bad days. Everybody has hardships in this. And we actually just, there's some growing pains. And even when you're older and seasoned, things happen, and the ground might not be just right for your horse, or it's somebody else's day to win. And so it's just always a journey, and it's a lifelong journey. There's not an end game.
Yeah. And I mean, and I know we talked a little bit before this recording, but I loved talking to you because just as we were getting to know each other a little bit, you have a really incredible mindset. And not only does your faith come through with that, but when you were just kind of telling me stories and your experience growing up in the Western industry, you have such a good mindset. And we talked a little bit about it, but have you always kind of felt this self-development journey? Have you always had the good discipline and the confidence that you do now, or is that kind of something that you had to really work towards?
Well, I would say there's different levels. And as you go through self-development and growth and becoming the best version of yourself you can, I think you hit a new level. So there's always a new best. There's always somewhere higher that I'm going to want to reach. But I haven't always had this mindset that I have now. I haven't always been confident. I haven't always felt like when I walk into a room, God sent me there. And I definitely still have hard days. I still have days where I get in my head and I'm down on my luck and, feel like maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I don't have what it takes. Maybe I don't have the horses or the resources or the opportunities that will get me where I want to go. But those days are those moments and thoughts are a lot shorter now than they used to be. And that just comes from continually pursuing growth and going through the hard stuff and coming out on the other side. I mean, I think we all learn from hardships and tough things. And if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, and especially women, we've all really struggled with self-confidence and insecurity. And unfortunately, and I know for me personally, it has really stopped me from pursuing goals that I've had in the past. And, we get these negative thoughts in our head and then it becomes our identity. And I was just listening to a podcast the other day, or yesterday, it was a sermon. And the pastor was talking about how, and I forget exactly how he worded it, but basically we do things based on who we think we are. So if we think I'm always going to be bad with money, then that's who you are as a person. Or I'm never going to be able to eat healthy or be in shape, then that's who you become. And because I had heard it spoken that way before, but just the way that he phrased it and gave some examples, it was like, wow, and I know for me, I have really worked on that discipline in my mindset in the last 5-6 months, because a lot of the times, in the past, I would kind of get, those negative thoughts, and then it was who I was, and I'm not good enough, so that's just who I am, and it stopped me from so many things. But when I was said to myself, you know what, I'm going to choose not to think these thoughts, and I know you and I had talked about this a little bit previously. We get to decide which thoughts we listen to, and if you are a person of faith, the thoughts that come from God and Jesus, those are the ones that we listen to. It's not the other ones, and the other ones are there to bring you down because it's the enemy talking. And so could you kind of talk a little bit about that, and maybe, how you kind of came to this mindset in terms of when you've had those really bad days? What are the types of things that you do to pull yourself out of it?
Yeah, I think in the thick of it, it's always hard. And again, I think people do a huge disservice to themselves and to their kids or people around them when they set the tone that it's going to be easy and that you're not going to have hardships and you're not going to have pain and you're not going to have suffering. I think one of the fundamentals that my mom really raised us with was that life is gonna kick you down. Life is gonna be hard. And the Bible tells us that, that we're gonna have trials here. And so I think it's very difficult if you've been raised up with a mindset that it's gonna be easy and it's gonna be all carefree. And so when you realize that you're gonna have a hard time, it's just the way it is. Right, wrong, indifferent, whenever, however that looks for you. Everybody's life looks a little different. Everybody's situation looks a little different, but we all are going to have hardships. We're going to lose people we love. We're going to have struggles, whether that's with addiction, whether that's with horses get hurt. The list goes on and on and on of bad things that are going to happen. So when you're going through hardships, faith is a muscle. And so it becomes easier the more that you exercise it. So when you go through hard times and you choose to lean on Jesus, our thoughts are something that we have control over. I think that's what people fail to really take hold of. It is a personal choice, and personal accountability is probably the biggest thing. No one is coming for you. You are responsible for the life that you live. You're responsible for the thoughts that you allow. You're responsible for what you do with your life. And there are so many things that are going to happen to us and around us in our upbringing, bad things that we can't choose, things that just happen that we don't have control over. But how you respond is always something that you get to decide. And so you really have to grab that power and not take it for granted. And just realizing that you are in control of that is probably the biggest thing for me. And I'm not a super positive, upbeat person by nature. I can be seriously a Debbie Downer. I try to make myself believe I'm a realist. But really, I'm just being a pessimist. And so taking accountability for my own struggles and also recognizing your own weaknesses. You have to know your weaknesses to know how to fight them. If you're not aware of what your personal weaknesses are and struggles are, because you're gonna fall into the same trap over and over and over again. The devil is going to come for you where you're weak every single time, because he knows where you're weak, and that's where he's going to hit you. And so you have to be very on guard and combat those things and be prepared and be ready to go into battle, because it is a battle of the mind, and life is lived in between your ears. It's all in your head. And, whether there's so many stupid little cliche things that we don't want to admit are real, but it's really that simple. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So I think people want to overcomplicate it, but it's just really simple self-accountability and dirty hard work.
Yeah, and you bring up so many good points. Like you said, it sounds so simple that we choose the thoughts that we want to listen to. And I know I've shared this on the podcast. When I was choosing the not good thoughts, it was because I felt like they had so much control over me. So I was just like, you know what? I'm trying to think differently. Oh, I'm not enough. No, I am enough. And, I try to keep telling myself that. And then for 2 days I'd do it, and then I'd stop really being aware, and then it overtook me again. So like you just said, it's the consistency. And for people that are listening that have been through this struggle, I feel like you and I can really relate to it, because it's something that I think so many struggle with, and we have to be consistent. We have to have that discipline. And even if you don't feel it right away, you're trying to tell yourself a different thought or whatever, and it almost feels fake because you've learned for so long, and that, recording in your head has just been going and going and going for so many years. When you first try to change it, it might not work. And I know, this applies to so many different things, whether you're reaching for your goal, whether you're in competition, whether you're in business, and it keeps coming up and up and up again. And really being consistent and disciplined with that can be really, really hard, and you touched on something else too that I'd love to talk about a little bit, is when we're in our struggles or in our challenges, something happened and we get kicked down, the rug gets pulled out from under us, and we're in that part where it was like, wait, I thought if I was following God, this was supposed to be easy, like you had mentioned, and it's not. But what I've learned is that those moments can be such a blessing in disguise, because not only do they bring you closer to God and they make you lean on him, knowing that you cannot do this all on your own, it brings you to a point where you learn and where you have to sit back and surrender, say, you know what, I'm giving it all to you. And if we never got there, if we never had that hardship, we would never have to look for something outside of us. And I would love for you to talk about that a little bit too, and times in your life when you've felt knocked down and what it taught you and how your faith pulled you out of it.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm trying to think of like a specific example right now, and I'm struggling to think of one because when you get rid of that guilt and that shame and the hardship and the pity party, like I seriously just don't connect with it anymore in so many ways. Like it's gone, it's over, it's done. You've got to move on. You got to cut it loose. So Jesus is so much freedom and so much peace. If I have to lose everything for your glory, let it be done, God. Like that heart posture is so important, and just coming to him day in and day out. I mean, there's no, oh, look, I've made it. Now I don't have to come to God and surrender this. No, I have to surrender this to God every single day for the rest of my life, because I need him every single day for the rest of my life. And I need him as much on the good days as I do the bad days. Truly, like, be humble and know that God has so many big plans, and he truly wants good things for you. So if I have to go through these hard times, whether it's a horse getting hurt, whether it's losing someone you love, whether it's financial hardships, to become the person that God wants me to be, okay, Lord, and there's just so many times in your life where you're not going to understand. You're never going to understand, and that's okay. That is why we need God. We aren't ever going to not need him. He meets us in the dark spots, in the trenches, in the depression. He's not a God of shame and guilt and condemnation. That is always from the devil. And the devil wants to keep you down, and he wants you to be depressed, and he wants you to feel like crap about yourself, and he wants you to think you're not good enough. And Jesus is the polar opposite. He wants you to know that you are so loved, and that even if you were the only person he died for, it was still enough. He would still do it. He would choose you. So just like putting your identity, for me, right? Like putting my identity in how I compete or what people think of me is one of my biggest mental struggles. and just battling like not being good enough and not feeling like I competed good enough. Even if it's like, I let this horse down, this horse deserves such a better jockey. This horse could reach a higher level with someone better than me. You know, the list goes on and on and on of ways that I could beat myself down. Nobody's as hard on me as me, I promise. But who you listen to matters. If you're going to tune into the devil, it's going to be a really bad day. And if you are going to listen to who Jesus says you are, the day is going to look a lot different. And he says that with him, all things are possible. And, you know, it's not about what other people think. It's not about the worldly description of success. It's not about how much you win. It's not about how successful you are in business. It's about, you know, how you love people and how you treat people. And the person that you are outside the arena will always matter so much more than how well you compete.
Yeah. I love how you touched on, it's about what God thinks of us, right? It's not about who, and you mentioned having a hard time with other people judging. I've felt the same way, you know, there for so long, and I still do it, and I still struggle with it a lot, is I'm going to do this. What does somebody think of me? And, you know, unfortunately, I think a lot of the times, especially with women, you know, we grow up being a people pleaser, you know, and especially as, you know, when we're younger, that's really kind of pushed on us. Don't make anybody mad. And when we grow up like that, and then we get into like this adult life, and we tend to be those people pleasers, and it's like, oh my gosh, trying to change it is so hard. How am I not supposed to worry about what people think of me? Or, you know, and in the last, you know, even 5-6 months, I have really, really tried to say, you know, I'm not going to care what people think. And then in the back of my mind, it's like, oh, but you know, this person, and oh, I just did this. Like, are they going to think I'm terrible? Are they going to think I'm mean? You know, whatever it is. So it's such a hard balance. But I think when we really try to focus on it, saying, you know what, for so long, I've told myself I'm not good enough, I'm not confident, I'm not pretty enough, smart enough, whatever it is. But what does God say that I am? And I have thrown myself into scripture, and every single time it's taken me out of it. And it's really starting to, like, quote unquote work. You know, I'm starting to really not think of myself as who everybody else says I am. But when you find that peace with who God says you are, there's like almost like a feeling at times where nothing can touch you. You know, it's about him, and he says this, and I'm special in his eyes, and it doesn't matter what anybody else says. Even as I'm saying this, it almost feels like, oh my gosh, for so long I never really came to that conclusion. And again, it's still hard. I have to choose it every day. So I really love how you really mentioned all of that, and you're a good example of that. So,
well, I try. I think it's so easy, right? Like, we get in our own head and we're like, oh gosh, everybody's thinking about me. Everybody's thinking about me. And the thing is, nobody cares, literally.
Right.
Like, it's nobody's thinking about you. Sorry.
Right.
Newsflash. They're thinking about themselves, and they're worried what you think about them.
Yeah.
And so, one of my favorite quotes is, you'd care a lot less what everyone says about you if you realized how seldom they do. Just nobody cares.
I love that.
And so, yeah, when you put your identity in the world and other people and success and money and status, it always leads to heartache, and it's not fulfilling. Jesus is the only one that is worthy of all of our complete trust, and the only one worthy of our identity. If he is who your identity is in, and who he says you are is what you believe. Like you said, you are almost like have this supernatural protection of being untouchable, because it's something that can't be taken away. Everything else in life can be taken away. Horses can be taken away. Loved ones can be taken away. Money, success, fame, all of it. And when you're on your deathbed, it doesn't matter. And, you know, people just care so much about the worldly and society and the worldly, like, mentality and fitting in and keeping up with the Joneses and what everyone thinks. And everybody's just in the same rat race in their heads. And you have to get out of it. You have to step away from it. or you just stay stuck in that trap and that mentality.
It's so true. And I think it sometimes takes a long time to get there, but you keep pushing for that, you will come to it, you know? So yeah, thank you for sharing all that. So I'd love to talk a little bit more about, you know, what your experience has been in the Western industry and what it's been like for you, you know, and I know we touched on it a little bit in the beginning, but competing in rodeo, and you train horses and you also coach kids. So can you talk a little bit about that too?
Yes, I have nothing but good things to say about being in the Western industry. I feel very privileged to have grown up in the circle and to be a part of the circle, and truly think the good people far outweigh any bad or any negativity. The rodeo family is unlike anything else I could describe. It doesn't matter if you are a friend of a friend of a friend and you're broke down. It's just all hands on deck. Everybody genuinely helps everyone for the most part. Of course, there's bad apples and, you know, there's bad people in every part of life, but overall the good far outweighs the bad, and just like a community of good people that would give the shirt off their back to anyone in need. They rally when hardship happens. They truly are such an amazing group to be a part of. And you know, the women in the Western industry is something that I try to stay away from that debate, I guess. Not stay away from, but I have my opinion. And it's that women have always been welcome at the table. Women built it just as much as men. And the men in the Western industry are genuinely good men. They respect women. They welcome women into the table. You know, if you want to roll up your sleeves and get to work, nobody is going to shrug at you because you're a woman. Like, it's just not real. And anybody saying it is hasn't been there, because for the most part, they are good men that love women and good women that love men and respect men. And, you know, I'd say, yeah, we're probably a more traditional group of people, and we love it that way. So yeah, we hold the door for ladies and say yes sir and yes ma'am, and it's the last of a dying breed, and I think it's a good way to be. Yeah
And unfortunately it seems, you know, in our culture now, and I'm hesitating because it's such a big topic, but there's so much of the world right now that's going the opposite way, right? And I think that the Western industry, and it seems there's been a little bit more, not attack on the Western industry, but you know, in some ways, you know, whether it's like, oh, cows are killing the planet and climate change, or there seems to be a lot of hype, you know, with like Yellowstone and all of these different things right now. But especially, I think when it comes down to it, and one of the reasons why, you know, I didn't grow up in ag, but I've fallen in love with this industry, not only because I've always loved horses, but as I started really getting into it and meeting people, the values that I was brought up with are so ingrained. And that is what has truly been just eye-opening, but also something that I am so passionate about trying to preserve it, because I do think it is, like you said, a dying breed. And unfortunately, the world is trying to make us the opposite, and take all of that, you know, away, and all of those good faith, freedom, family values that so many people in this industry really, you know, it's your life. It's funny when I talk to some friends of mine who aren't in, or have, you know, never even stepped foot on a ranch or been around a horse or whatnot. And I try to explain to him, no, like, this is your life. It's it's not just going to a 9 to 5. It's not only are you know, working on the ranch every day, you're around your animals every single day, but it becomes who you are. And I love it. And they're like, oh yeah, you know, cool. And like, yeah, you know, work a lot or whatever, but they don't really understand it. And I don't think that you can really understand it until you're actually in it and you put the work in. And I know when you and I had a previous conversation about it, when people want to get into ag, right? Whether they're interested in it, or maybe they're really just, oh, I hear your story and say, oh my gosh, I want to be a barrel racer too. What are some things that they can do to get their foot in the door?
Yeah. So I think this is probably one of the most asked questions on my Instagram, and as well as just kind of in the ag circle, because it's so romanticized. It looks beautiful on Yellowstone. It looks fun from Instagram. My main take on this is like, if you wanted to, you would. Mm-hmm. And I have given up a lot for the opportunities that I have continued to pursue. You know, my family is not as involved as I am, and they've stepped away from it. And, you know, you have to be willing to work like a dog and not get paid, because newsflash, that's what we're doing. Like, you know, we don't do this because we have money, like, or to make money. And that's not exactly what I mean, but because it is a business, but it is also a way of life. And I do believe that, like, there's a lot of business practices that could be applied to the Western industry, and that are kind of like old habits die hard. And so I do like to mix things up. Just since we've always done it this way doesn't mean it's the right way, you know? And so there's a fine line of taking good business advice and modern business advice and things that we know with the old ways and the traditions, and kind of meshing it together for the right, to do the right thing. And I think ranching and the ag industry, I guess, is as a whole, and kind of horse training too. Every situation is different, and every operation is different, and every, even just the land, the location where you live has such a huge impact. And so, if you want to get started, the main thing is you're not going to get paid. Like, I think that's the biggest problem, is everybody wants to get paid when they have no experience. And so that's just not a reality, because most of these operations are small operations that can't afford to pay you, you know? And so if you're not willing, if you don't want it bad enough to go without being paid, to just roll up your sleeves and get to work, you just don't want it. And so that's okay. Somebody else does, you know, but don't act like somebody owes you something. You know, nobody owes you anything in life. It's up to you to say, no, this is what I want. This is what God put in my heart, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get it. I think there's not one big fits all situation. There's just, hey, this is important to me, and now I'm going to do it, you know? So that might mean moving across the country. That might mean going unpaid. That might mean working 12 hours a day to get experience. And again, like, for the most part, these are people that just honestly respect integrity and hard work. And if that's what you're willing to do, come on, like, come live with us and roll up your sleeves and get to work, and you'll leave with a skill set and with knowledge. And we're happy to teach you people that want to learn, but we don't want to pay for you to get an education, because that's what you're here to do. You know, you're here to learn and to get an education. And, you know, when you go to college, you pay for the education, not the other way around. But somehow in this industry, people think that they should get paid to learn. And, you know, you get paid for the skill set that you bring.
Right.
And so I just think that there's a very romanticized Instagram Yellowstone version that we all were just born into these wealthy families and wealthy ranches, and they don't have that opportunity. And it's just not true. You know, I wasn't born onto some big family ranch. It's been a grind for my mom every day of her life. You know, she's worked her butt off to have what she has and to afford her kids these opportunities. And, you know, if the opportunities aren't where you live, you have to be willing to move or give up the opportunities, you know? So I think people just like to sit around and complain and not take action.
It's so true. And I feel like I see that so much and like you said, especially on Instagram. And I think, like you just said, there's such a romanticized version of it. And for people that really do want to get into it, you know, they do have to move maybe across the country and work for free. And I know you and I had talked about this a little bit beforehand too, but you've got to be willing to go and do whatever it takes. You know, I think I've mentioned on the podcast, when I really wanted to do this, I moved halfway across the country and I took a remote job that didn't pay me a lot, but it allowed me to be at the ranch from 7 to 8 o'clock at night. And I would do my work in between on some lunch breaks and whatever, or do it really early in the morning. And, you know, I made it a goal. Like, I have to get a job that allows me to have flexibility. I wasn't getting paid at all, hardly, and I was barely affording it, but it allowed me to be at the ranch. And that's what I cared about. And I've been doing it for the last couple of years, and now thankfully, you know, I'm going on to a new job where I'm going to be getting paid a little bit more and more experience and seeing a different operation. But you've got to be willing. And I think that that's the piece that no one really wants to hear, is that you've got to do it. And you appreciate it more, I think, when you are, you know, you have to work in another area to make this part work for you, because this is what you really want. And especially on Instagram, even with, you know, entrepreneurs, and I don't know what it is, but every time I log on to Instagram now, there's somebody that is like on their reel saying that they just made $50,000 in the last 3 months off of some like course. And I'm like, and there's so many people, and I'm like, okay, what is going on? Like, first of all, am I completely missing out on something? And second, this can't be true. Like, why are all these people going on and saying that they just made $30,000 in 4 months? Off a course, you know? And it's like, these are the things that just make people, and it's that instant gratification. And I think not only does it apply in business and entrepreneurship, but it's starting to affect this Western industry and getting jobs and things like that, you know? So it's like, my gosh.
Yeah, the instant gratification culture is so dangerous. And, you know, everybody wants something for nothing. And, you know, that's not real. And if you're not willing to suffer for it, you just don't want it that bad. People think that it cracks me up. Oh yeah, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And it's just bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, when you're saddling, you know, 12th horse at midnight, you're not just having the time of your life. You know, it's just dirty, hard work. It's a job. And I mean, yeah, I love what I do. I'm not trying to, you know, say that I don't, but when I'm tired and it's the 12th horse and I've been up since 4 a.m. already and I want to go to bed, I'm tired, you know, you're exhausted physically, mentally, but you don't have a choice. Like, it's the job. And so you saddle the horse and you get on and you get the job done, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's not like this romantic, fun, oh yeah, you're just going to ride horses and have the time of your life. No, it's a job. It's a physically demanding job. It's a mentally demanding job. And it's a financially demanding job. You know, when you're the person with all the risk, it's a lot of pressure, and horses get hurt, and if you've got livestock, you've got dead stock. Like, it's a stressful occupation, and you know, it's not easy, and it's not for the faint of heart. That's what I can tell you. And the people that are not doing it or think that it's going to be easy, they don't last. They don't stick with it, because it's not for the faint of heart. It's just not. Breeding horses. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of the risks and the expenses and the things that happen and the hardships that come with it. And if you love it, it's amazing, but it's still hard work.
Yeah. And the emotional toll that it can take on you too. Not only, you know, you have a dead cow or, you know, a horse that passes away. And not only that, can that be a huge financial burden, but life and death is so in your face, and the emotional toll that it takes on you. And, you know, I was just telling you, I recorded the podcast, that will be released before this one. But when I lost my horse, the emotional toll that it took on me, and it's still new. I still am like having a hard time talking about it. Or a mama cow has to stillbirth twins, and you've got to take care of it. There's no time to, not that there's no time to grieve, but you've got to see it, process it, and there's still work to be done. There's still other animals that you have to take care of. And I know that this is a big talk, the mental health in the agriculture industry and whatnot. Just going back to the romanticized version, there's so many parts of this everyday life that people don't see. And it does. You've got to be able to take it and take the hits with the nights that you do get to saddle up on the horse and you're feeling really good and you're still tired, but you get to watch that sunset and you have an awesome ride. And those are I think the things that we live for, but you've got to take the good with the bad.
Yeah. And you definitely have to take the good with the bad. And for the most part, I do love it. And I love the hard days because I love challenges. And that's kind of why I do it, is to do what nobody else will do. When you do it and you know everybody else is in bed, that's a different kind of high. Like it just, and that's where confidence comes from. Confidence comes from doing the work. Confidence comes from knowing that you showed up prepared and that you showed up over prepared, and that, right, whatever happens now, I did my best and I put the work in. And, whether that is losing cows, losing horses, the struggle too is like the financial hit, like you're talking about, like we see that, we feel it, I can promise you nobody is getting up in a blizzard like the ranchers, to go check their cows and check their calves. And the mental health side of it is very, very important to me. And, I think that's where Jesus comes into it, because he is like trusting him and having that faith in him and knowing that he will absolutely work all things for good, and that he is in control. That's the freedom and where we can be okay with wherever the chips fall. And Mother Nature is a beast. And whether you're, in Texas or the Panhandle and there's fires and they just come through and destroy your lifelong work, and you're so heartbroken. I don't think people can understand like the attachment that you're talking about, unless they've lived it. Like, it's not explainable. Whether it's a good ranch dog gets in an accident, whether it's a horse, whether it's a cow, being stewards of the land and God's creatures is truly, in my opinion, just such a high calling in life and such a privilege. It's not something that I take for granted. And, I think truly that I'll be judged for how well I have taken care of everything he's given me. And that includes the animals that he's put in my care, and is a big responsibility for me to take the absolute best care of them that I can, and also train up kids to do the same.
Yeah. Could you talk a little bit about your coaching and your training?
Yes. My coaching is probably one of my biggest challenges and one of my biggest blessings. I love my lesson program. I love kids. I'm a kid person. I think that the youth is one of the most important things that we can work on, and the biggest impact and legacy and change that we can put on the world is children. And so I love to see kids get involved in rodeo and Western life and carry on traditions. I run my mom helps me. She's a staple in it. We run a very unique program. It's pretty much unlike any other. It's very committed kids, very full time. My one lesson student, she was in Arizona with us for 2 months. For the most part right now, it's strictly barrel racers. It is kids that want to go very far in barrel racing and that are extremely dedicated and extremely passionate, and their parents are on board with that. This is, an expensive thing. And I, work with kids that can't afford it, and will trade hard work and blood, sweat, and tears, for them if they financially are struggling. My mom has always been a kid person. She ran a lesson program all through my upbringing. And she's just the kind of person that always is just grabbing people and bringing them along with her. It's just who she is. And so she has always grabbed, kids that didn't have opportunities, kids that come from hard families, and try to bring them along and give them the best opportunities that she possibly could. And so when we were in Arizona, actually, one of my lesson girls' horses had a crazy freak accident and passed away very tragically. It was a very emotional time for her. And, my mom, without hesitation, just puts her on some of our best horses. And that's just the kind of person that she is. And so I'm very grateful to have had her example in the program. And she's definitely gives me big shoes to fill. My mom is honestly an amazing coach. And I learned so much from her, even about coaching kids. And I learned so much about myself from coaching them, about how to be a better teacher, delivery, when to push and when to be compassionate, and, when to say, hey, you're not doing the work. Like, it shows, and when to, offer encouragement and just say it's all in God's timing. You have to keep going, and it's so much grit and resilience comes from this way of life that is hard to explain. And it's a lot of pressure on kids. And it is, again, it's unlike any other sport. So it is going to provide different heartache and different trials. And to me, that's the beauty of it. And that's the point, because that's where we all learn. And if it was easy, everybody would do it. And these kids are tough and they work hard. And, I always joke, are you going to let a bunch of 9-year-old little girls outwork you today? Because they are putting in the time and they're putting in the work. And, even though they have these amazing opportunities, they're going to have to earn it.
Yeah. And there are so many lessons that cannot, whether you're on a ranch or whether you're around horses in competition and rodeo, there's so many lessons that cannot be taught anywhere else. And for people that grew up in it, I'm sure it's shaped you. It shaped who you are. And how incredible, too, that you get to do this alongside your mom. And your mom sounds like an absolute badass. She sounds awesome.
Yeah, she is.
Just, the way that she raised you guys. And it's pretty cool to hear that you get to do this alongside her and have that special relationship with her, not only as mother-daughter, but, in business together and doing this life together. That's really special.
Yeah, it is. It's, we've been through hell and back together, and, from the lowest lows to the highest highs, she's always stuck by me and I've always stuck by her. And it's something that I'm very grateful for. And, it's not a relationship that I can explain. It's so humbling and I'm so grateful, truly. I don't know what else to say about it, because it is so special and something that has truly shaped me and made me who I am. And she's by far the greatest person that I've ever known. And I'm just always in awe of how much she continues to teach me and how much she knows. She's awesome.
Yeah. I usually ask this question at the end, but I want to ask it now, just in terms of your mom. What's either the best piece of advice that she's ever given you, or even the best life lesson that she has taught you so far?
My mom's, she's got a couple mottos. One of them is "Don't weaken." And she's said that my whole life, and she's lived it my whole life. She has overcome so much. She actually has it tattooed on her arm. And don't weaken. It's just, you can't quit. I don't think that can fully soak in unless you know my mom, because when she says it, there's a lot of fire and a lot of passion. And my mom is a really loud person and powerful presence. And honestly, just her energy is crazy. Like, people are so drawn to her. And she always says that authenticity is way more powerful than love. I think there's like a quote that says authenticity is like 4,000 times more powerful than love. And so people love real shit. You got to be who you are, and you have to be real. Love me, hate me, but you can always know that she's going to be who she is, no matter what, no matter who walks in the room, no matter if the pressure's on, no matter if you feel like the lowest low. Like, my mom is the person that can make someone feel like a 2. Like, if you feel like you're a 2, she's going to turn you into a 10. Like, she just builds everyone up and is like a huge presence to everyone around her. Like, her energy is so contagious. And she's insanely optimistic, like delusionally optimistic, and has the most faith that God is on her side and that it's all good.
I wish I could be more like that on some days.
Yeah, she balances me out for sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible. That's very, very cool. Thank you for sharing all that. So just to kind of wrap up a little bit, and I wanted to ask you too, because you're wearing your hat, your Stay Gritty. How did you come up with that? That's kind of, would you say it's your brand? I know it's your Instagram handle, but yeah, how did you come up with it?
I had gone back and forth and tried to come up with something that was catchy. Yeah, I guess I'd say it's my brand at this point.
Yeah.
Something that I could stand behind and that had meaning and meant something to me. And so Stay Gritty kind of just came out of like, don't weaken, honestly. But it came through the process of me working out, my demons and knowing that if I just keep showing up and if I don't quit, if I stay gritty, like it's gonna be okay. It is truly like a brand and a mindset of anyone who perseveres, who keeps going when things get hard, who has a reason, people who have a reason to be bitter and pull the victim card and be like, well, this happened to me, and have a pity party, but choose not to. And to keep going, fueled by the peace and power of Jesus. Like so yeah, I guess it's kind of become my motto. And I'm very, very grateful and humbled for the people that believe in my brand and, what it has become. It's really just, there's not some big, profound moment where I realized I was Stay Gritty. It's funny. It's funny. People have like recognized me in life and they're like, oh my gosh, that's Stay Gritty. And I don't like, it's so crazy. I don't know how to explain it really, because there wasn't like, I always had goals for social media and I knew that it was like a financial opportunity and like the digital age and that I should maybe get involved in it and dabble in it. But I didn't really think that it was going to be me, I guess, per se. And then it just became me being myself and telling, really like sharing what I needed to hear and like what I was telling myself to get through the day or pull my head out of my ass and like give myself the pep talks. It really wasn't about like some big, huge online presence. It was just about genuinely being humble and wanting to, if I could make a positive impact on the world, or not the world, even like one person, like then that'd be sweet, because one person matters to Jesus. And so it's not about like this big, huge number. It's just about staying humble and kind and working hard.
And I think it's a testament to you two talking a little bit about authenticity. And, although we haven't met, we've had a good phone conversation before this and now with this conversation too. But from everything I've seen on your Instagram talking to you, it just reinforces it. It reinforces everything that you believe and that you post about. And sometimes that doesn't happen all the time. There's people that you see on Instagram, you kind of think they're one person, and then you either meet them in person or you talk to them and it's not the same. So I want to make sure to say that too, that your authenticity does come through a lot.
Well, it's something that weighs on me a lot, definitely, is I'm like, I hope people don't meet me and be like, oh, she's not near as nice as she pretends to be on Instagram. Like, she did not treat that person like that. So it definitely, in some ways, keeps me in check, because I do want to be, not that I'm perfect and not that I don't mess up, because I do, but I also try to show that on the internet as much as I can. And, I genuinely do hope that people receive my intentions as just me being me. And I couldn't show up that through like the social media process. You can't, at least for me, I couldn't show up every day faking it and not just being myself. So like in the beginning, a lot of people were like, you need to not talk about faith. You need to not talk about politics. Like, people don't want to hear about this. It's controversial. And I just had to not listen to that advice and be like, no, either you can love me or you can hate me, but I have to be who I am and I have to be real, or else I'm not doing this every day.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing all that. So we'll just kind of wrap up a little bit here too, but what are you kind of currently working on? What do you got going on in either the next few months or, your goals for this year? What's on your plate?
I have a lot on my plate coming up. I'm definitely focusing on building my real estate business and working on that and focusing on some horses that I have coming up. I've got a few colts that need started that are just coming 2-year-olds. And so having been gone the last couple of months, I'm still behind on everything. And like, I just need to play catch up. So we have some bigger barrel races coming up. We're going to go to the Extreme Millions and see how we do there and ride some colts. And beyond that, I don't know. I haven't seen very far into the future besides ride colts and work on my real estate business.
Nice. Oh, that's great. Well, thank you. Where can people find you?
Yeah, stay gritty on Instagram, Sam Moulding, and Sam Moulding on Facebook.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, thank you. And you post the Bible study every week, right? The link to do it on Monday mornings.
Yep, it's Monday mornings at 6:00 Mountain Time. I am pretty good about posting the link for it, and it's the same recurring link, so you can see that on my page as well.
Cool. Awesome. Well, Sam, this was a great conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me and share all that you did. And I think that our audience hopefully got a lot out of it. I know that I did. So I just want to thank you again. And any last words you want to share or just wrap it up here and thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was an awesome conversation and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks so much, Sam.
Yeah, thank you.